Welcome to another edition of Respond to Resilience. I'm David Dashinger. On this edition, we'll be speaking with Dave Pamah, retired London firefighter, about his book, Firefighting From Within, his podcast, The Dave Pamah Show, and his resiliency coaching on the Aura app, right after this. When I was trained to become a firefighter and an EMT, very little time was devoted to educating us about job-related stress, burnout, trauma, sleep disruptions, and mental health. We didn't know that there were life-saving resources, resilience strategies, and support groups that help first responders to cope with anxiety, depression, and stress. It's a huge understatement to say that first responder mental health is in crisis. Fire, police, and EMS are professions where more die by their own hands than by the hazards of the job. And research shows that up to a quarter of public safety dispatchers have symptoms of PTSD and depression. In this silent worldwide crisis, first responders are quietly suffering due to stigmas around mental health services and lack of awareness about vital resources that are available to assist them. We can help the helpers. Welcome to Respond to Resilience, a panel of experts sharing their wisdom and experience from the front lines of first responder health and wellness. And we're here with Dave Pamah. Dave's a retired firefighter from London, England, who helps people build resiliency. And when we hear his story, it is one of resiliency through many, many obstacles and challenges. His experience has led him to helping others through his personal coaching and his book, Firefighting From Within. Dave hosts the podcast, The Dave Pamah Show, where he highlights ways people can make improvements in their lives and other mental health topics. He says that people need to build resiliency by using mindfulness to gain some calmness in their life. And having more positivity can help you live your best life. Dave, welcome to Respond to Resilience.
Thank you for having me, David.
Let's start with your book. Why did you write the book, Firefighting From Within? And the subtitle of that is How to Master the Tools of Life, Even During Tough Times. So what's that about?
Well, kind of everybody's got a good book in you. What I discovered about myself, halfway during my career, I had dyslexia, and I kind of like, now, wow, I can do things now, because the positive side is like, actually, that's what was stopping me. So go ahead and do it. And then when social media came out, there's someone called Heidi, who's a co-author, who's, she's involved with athletics and knew a friend of a friend, or mutual friends from athletes I knew, and said, yeah, I'll help you write this book. And, she was sort of partially deaf, or actually totally deaf, I can't remember. But so it was kind of like, yeah, okay. So that all that mixed in together said, yeah, I'm going to definitely try and write this book. And I did have some tough times, I think, and I've seen other firefighters too, during my journey, go through certain things, whether it's on the ground, fire ground. I know I have met a couple that got affected, either got burnt or PTSD, and whether it's a confrontation with the man, captain, you call it, fire captain, the station officer or watch manager, we call it over in the UK, and there's a station politics that goes on, or whether it's at home and there's stuff that we talk about around this. Oh no, this happened and that, and sometimes it's quite serious, and I thought, yeah, I just want to write this book, and because that was a good thing for me from the self-esteem point of view of the dyslexia, I think, more than anything, and some of the bullying that I kind of experienced.
Yeah, what? Tell us a little bit more about the dyslexia and sort of how it, you came to realize it was something that was going on, and what sort of things were you having to handle around being dyslexic?
Yeah, well, I never knew about it at school. I was actually placed in a special school, they called it those days. They don't do that these days. They keep you in mainstream and get a tutor, because obviously they realise actually you've got a different way of learning. That's the good, more positive way of putting it. But in those days they didn't. So, but I kind of recovered well, because obviously it caused some stress as well as a kid, because it wasn't labelled then, if you like. It's just the behavioural side they saw of it, of not coping well with the academia and this is like elementary days, so, but then I recovered well and I did my sports, and everything. But then went through life, obviously firefighting and sports was my dream job and lifestyle thing to do. And I was actually quite politically minded with the stuff that's going on around the world and around me. I did kind of have some sense of social justice. And so I did get my dream job as being a firefighter in London, carried on. Well, actually, I stopped my sport, but then carried it on when I realised, well, I want to do this to keep fit. And then, got quite well at it again. And I thought, well, I'll kind of like combine it for a while, kind of keep some of my senior officers happy. Dave did this for us. It reminded me of something happened at school when I first got me into doing track and field as a 10-year-old. And before that, I was just getting teased a lot because of my undiagnosed dyslexia, amongst other things, but that was the main thing. So when I suddenly won everything, mostly sprints and long jump, they brought me to the front of the assembly and said, yeah, Dave did this. And it was a different self-esteem. And so I suppose that got me to just do that in the environment of a culture of what I was around in the fire service as well. So, how I got diagnosed was I went to, eventually I did do some trade union, got involved in some trade union work. But I did want to try and go for a promotion because I saw, I passed like the leading firefighters exam in my first year as a firefighter, which is like lieutenant exam. And so I thought, I can do this, because at first I thought, I'll just be a firefighter and just stay in this job as long as I can and, just do that. And, then it gave me a different thought. And the more I was teased around the station, the more it drove me to want to do it. But it didn't really happen. And then I thought, one of my colleagues said, he did an online degree course called Open University. He said, why don't you do this, at university? And I went to a university that helps people with evening and weekend classes for working people. So when it came to writing a dissertation, the essays was bad enough. And reading all those books, I didn't really do properly. I had to look for easy ways to structure how I did it. It all came into place. And I looked at my life and thought, wow, when I got diagnosed, when they showed the classic symptoms at work and at school, and I was a bit of a class clown then, and this had, this was kind of, the coping strategies was mirrored what they're saying the symptoms were. And lo and behold,
how old were you when you got diagnosed?
40 years old.
Wow, that's very. It's like decades into your life already.
Decades into my life, So that was a huge thing.
You certainly have shown resilience in your life. Finding something like track that helped. That's something you could do well. That you excelled at. That kind of changed your how people viewed you, and then that translated into firefighting as well. So talk about the mental shifts that you've gone through to become a firefighter, to be successful, to get through the career you've had. What are some of the mental shifts you've gone through to have that career?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really, kind of young and excitable when I first joined. The confidence did get hit a bit, when kind of either some of the abuse happened that I kind of got that I didn't like, but how I turned it around. I mean, as I said, a colleague said to me, "Oh, you've got a placid exterior," and I tend to be that kind of. I can sit down quiet on my own and be calm and just process this, and then think, well, just put it in the back of your mind, just carry on.
Looking back at your exercise and running career, because you have some pretty impressive credentials as a runner, doing track, and tell us a little bit about some of the events you've competed in and how you did in them. But I know we were sharing a little bit offline about running track, and you were 400 and 800 meter. It's not really a sprinter; it's a middle distance, right?
Well, 800's in the middle distance category, if you like, in track and field. But they do run it like a sprint these days. You can't, a lot of them are 400 meter runners. Some are actually still distance runners that do it, but you want to get a lot of them that can run marathons, or run half marathons now these days, whereas before, you used to get more the aerobic type. Mm-hmm. So I actually was a 400 meter runner. I didn't like training too much, didn't like the cold weather in the UK to train, so I kind of chose the easy route, and you can do it for overall, because kind of like lactic acid and kind of like that you have to fight at the end of it, you know, so it's more anaerobic glycosis, if you like. So if anyone that's a personal trainer will know what I'm talking about. If you're a firefighter and do that as your sideline, you know exactly, because you can go into that as a firefighter as well, depending, you know. But without sidetracking, yeah, that 400 became an 800 thing. That's just where my muscle fibers took me, really. I wasn't really, you know, going to be a Usain Bolt type, rather doing that. Although, I can sprint, obviously, you know, that's how it all started, really. But I just found myself there, and I didn't mind the, you know, the mixture, because it's all round fitness, isn't it, really? So, so that sort of helps. And while being a firefighter, you know, the strength endurance side and strength, you know, I made sure I had a strength coach, obviously, at the track, and people helping me. There's a bodybuilder on my station. It all helps with doing that side of things as well. So it all kept my enthusiasm around sports and fitness going, really, while I was in the job.
Right. It's that's another side of resilience, right? Is maintaining the physical fitness through through a career. And how many years were you on the job?
Almost 25, so 20. I don't know, 24 in a few months, but just almost 25 years.
It's a nice full career, a good run.
Doesn't feel like I've left the job in a way, but you know, I'm glad I enjoy a retired life at the same time, really, you know. So
let's talk about some of the things that happened during your career and ways that you were resilient through it. You were involved in a major rail crash at Ladbroke Grove in 1999, and can you tell us about that incident? Like what it was like to respond to that call, and what some of the after effects were for you personally?
So the year before that, I was getting ready to compete at the Commonwealth Games through the back door, like a wild card entry through my parentage. It's a huge thing, because that's like Olympic Games to, you know, any in America. I don't know if you know about it, Games, but it's like the Pan American Games, you know. So so that was a huge thing to do. And then I also was eyeing going for promotion, because I passed the thing. So I passed the kind of psychometrics and going on the training courses. The beginning of that year, when I was trying to train for all that and still stay on the run as a firefighter, my brother died in a car crash. I mean, I'm not going to go into that. Obviously, you go into so many of these incidents yourself, and you know, it caused a lot of you know, tragedy around the family. And obviously, I sort of took a couple of weeks off myself. Then got myself up, because obviously was motivated by I wasn't going to do the games then, because that was just like a little sideline, if you like, you know. And I was doing some coaching as well and personal training, you know. So that was my hobby that I was making a little bit of money cash from. But I stopped all that and thought, no, I just want to just get back to work and just, you know, get home and just process all this. But then people said, no, go on, do the games. And, you know, I had a slight hamstring strain as well, and you know, took most of that kind of summer not training. So I had 6 weeks to go. I thought, well, I'll go to the games and do it. I found myself in a semi-final, which was quite good. But then got back home from Malaysia, that's where it was, and was told that my mum had breast cancer. Yeah. So that obviously sort of was now a little resilience roller coaster again. So I had to deal with that, because obviously I had that big disruption. A month later, then I went to the railroad incident. So we were just sitting down in a fire station. We did our full night shift, which is not a 24-hour shift, but we did sort of work nights for 15 hours and days is about 9. Hang on, I've got the maths wrong. No, the maths is right, actually. But it's different now. But it's still like, you know, 4 days and 4 days off. So we have the night. And so we just finished our night shift, having breakfast. Then we got the call just before I had to finish at 9 o'clock in the morning. Saw the big plummet of smoke, because it was a diesel train and electric. They had both. So the two trains collided together, and then a diesel tank went round. I can't remember how to explain it, but then the spark of the electric sort of exploded and burnt a few carriages. And then this happened twice, and people were thrown out the train. And of course, it was a rush hour. It was a working day. We turned up. We got called because we had like a rescue unit with all the bigger rescue stuff. So that was attached to our station. So I went with my station to rescue 4 people that were trapped in one of the carriages, and it took 4 hours. So where I could have come off at 9 and I would have had to go back to work at 6 in the evening, we just spent really most of the day there. You know, I didn't get home until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5, and then I had to go back to work again at 6. You know, so that's what kept us there, was just being, you know, cutting away the 4 trapped people. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if all of that roller coaster in those 2 years kind of affected me. We had a critical incident debrief, but I didn't have the classic symptoms then. I think within 28 days, you've got to kind of have this kind of hypersensitivity. I don't know what it was, but the PTSD wasn't really picked up then. But yeah, so that's leading up to the crash. That's what was going on.
What did you experience in the aftermath of all that, between, you know, your mother's diagnosis, your brother's passing, and this crash at Ladbroke Grove? Was there a time when you were having difficulty dealing with all of that?
I didn't really think about stress, because in those days there's a culture around, you know, stress and mental health, and it wasn't a good culture, to be honest. So even that kept you bottled up and stuff like that as well. And I didn't even know the symptoms too much. Except I know now that I actually had nightmares at work, you know, when I was sleeping in the station from about 97, you know, before any of this happened. And, you know, they got worse. So some other ones, like stopped athletics, but then increased my alcohol a bit, to cope, and that wasn't really a good thing to do, you know. So I knew that now I have to notice triggers these days now, you know, to make sure I can manage that, you know, and things like that. Same with eating and stuff like that.
How did you get from all that, these adversities and challenges, to fast forward to creating your coaching on the Aura app and writing the book? Like, what things have you discovered along the way that, you know, have taught you about resilience and being able to pay that forward to people that you coach?
Yeah, I mean, sports and fitness was a general theme in my life, you know, after kind of like the bullying thing. And obviously, I think when I experienced some of the bullying in the fire station, I'm not going to go into politics, but it does exist everywhere, you know. Of course, there was something to dig me out with kind of some of the dyslexic traits I had that I brought into the workplace from. And when I found out about that, one of the things that I knew I had was my general theme of a lifeline of sports and fitness. So I kept that going. I got transferred from initially with, you know, sports coaching and personal training, and, you know, that was the in thing those days, to doing life coaching and resilience coaching. That's all now the big thing now, especially in first responders and other areas. It's huge now. And so I just recently started my own podcast and thought, well, actually, what can I do in retired life and, you know, the new life I've got around me? And a lot of it had to be online because I've got a wife and daughter and you know, semi-retired abroad to the Philippines. It's kind of a little bit remote. So I thought, well, I'll do you know, a podcast and some similar to what you're doing, David. Yeah, some podcast and some kind of online coaching thing, because you know, I can't do it the way I had my life in London. It evolved into, you know, I took a few courses, mindfulness, personal training. I'll continue that, and the life coaching, and then recently got certified as a resilience coach, and I'm trying to do the high adversity one, which is aimed at first responders, you know, hospital frontliners, that kind of thing, or even executive that, you know, are going through kind of executive stressful stuff in corporate life, you know. And so yeah, that's where I'm at now with the podcast and the meditation app that has life coaches. They headhunted me, got me as a coach from there as well.
Dave, let's take a break. We'll come back and continue the conversation right after
Sure,
this.
yeah, will do.
Our mission at Responder Wellness, Inc. is to subsidize or provide free of charge safety equipment and wellness services to first responders, including police officers, firefighters, EMS personnel, and 911 operators throughout Connecticut. Resources include scholarships to train new EMTs, a responder and veteran-only AA group in Danbury, Connecticut, as well as police vests, a fire and EMS boot program, yoga classes, gym memberships, and T-shirts. The founder of Responder Wellness, Inc. co-leads a peer support group sponsored by Fairfield County Trauma Response Team. Responder Wellness, Inc. is a nonprofit 501c3. Find us on the web at responderwellness.org, on Facebook at Responder Wellness, Inc., or email us responderwellness@gmail.com. Responder Wellness, Inc., putting responders first.
And we're here speaking with Dave Pamah, author of the book Firefighting From Within, and also coach on the Aura app. Dave, I'm not familiar with the Aura app. I did go to the website, but didn't really give me a great idea what goes on the app. Can you talk a little bit about how you deliver your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it is primarily what an app, kind of like what you're doing with your app. So it just started in 2018, and one of the things I did when I set myself up online, actually I started just with some blogs, and I was cut and pasting a lot of stuff, with the website, and then I kind of like changed it to a podcast afterwards. But anyway, I put out there, I'm going to be doing some coaching now, because I took these new qualifications online to try and make some money. And then they headhunted me and said, yeah, we like what you're doing, and we want you as a coach on our app, a life coach. So I was one of the first ones there. But it was really just coaching recordings. So I kind of like just got ideas from places and got help. And audio is better than writing, so I can't write articles. So it made it a good thing to do, especially when I was going to be doing the podcast. I just started the podcast then as well, so it kind of it's a good idea. But when I now sort of niche down to being more of a resilience coach, and they've kind of like, 3 years fast forward 3 years, they're now actually they've now got a new model to do some one-on-one coaching, with the coaches that are on there. There's a small amount of kind of life coach and health coach and resilience like that. Most of it's sort of based around meditation, stories, music, like that. That's what's mostly on there, and they're more bigger, and more larger amount of coaches. So it's a similar concept to yours, but it's more out to the general, and it's worldwide. People from all over the world are joining it. They've got a Facebook group which is doing quite well. The app's doing quite well, and I've seen some magazine reviews, and it's up there in the top 5. So I'll basically be doing some one-on-one with some of the users, or all the users that are on there as well.
Sounds great. And talk about your book a little bit too, Firefighting From Within. There's a lot of things you mentioned earlier in this episode are in the book, and it really talks about some of the challenges you faced, but also some of the tools you've used to overcome those challenges.
Author and firefighter Dave Pamah turns a wealth of personal experience into practical advice in his new self-help book, co-written by Heidi Hargreaves. After successfully standing up against bullying at school and in the workplace, Pamah felt inspired to make a difference. Written for readers from all walks of life, this guide provides the tools necessary to survive tough times and overcome adversity. You too can live a successful, fulfilling existence by taking action and remaining calm in difficult situations. Learn how to cultivate a positive attitude and see your problems from new, challenging points of view. Personal growth is within reach. Pick up Pamah and Hargreaves' book today and take control of your life.
I talk about collaboration and teamwork, which also is a very important area, and for resiliency as well. You do need to get on as much as possible as well.
Yes, and it's a good read. It's I think in terms of the balance between the firefighting piece of it and how you've adapted and kind of adapt and overcome in different situations that are very good takeaways for someone who's dealing with challenges, particularly as a first responder, but probably for anybody.
Yeah, that's how I wanted to really write it. It's like, someone's coming from a certain profession, but anyone can read it and get something from it, really. I suppose you get these guys from military, that's where it all came from, or from a sports, but then they become a motivational speaker and they do it for anyone. To take these tools from what I learned from my thing and they give analogies. So I guess I was trying to do that, really, with the book.
On the Dave Pamah Show, recently been interviewed by you on the show. Who are your guests, like in general? What kind of guests and what do you talk about?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like sitting around a kitchen table. You call it the kitchen table, we call it the mess table at work. But you sit down and you talk about various things. It could be job related. It could be something, that they're doing, a hobby, sport, what they're doing. And it could be various things, a relationship. Oh, my wife did this and whatever, So I kind of like bonded it together with the theme of what my book was about, and tried to get topics around that, but included topics that I came across through my life, and not only in the fire service, but before. Tried to get some sports people. I had some famous ones as well. Music people like yourself, David, I've had on. But the theme tends to be around self-development as opposed to and bettering your life, And then where I can now, I get it around resilience. And especially now with what's going on in my life now, I've actually had to streamline the guests so that I can really keep the topic more around that and leadership, really leadership and managing stuff like that, really.
If you want to share what's going on and sort of how you're handling it, tell us what's.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably I'll start with last year again. Where I was staying in the Philippines in 2020, January, there was a volcanic eruption, but it was only a kind of like, will it go? Will it go? It was sort of almost a full explosion. They were waiting to see if it was, but it was dust everywhere because it wasn't far from where I was, about an hour. So I got my family out of the house because it can also get toxic, but the dust was getting in my eyes, making me choke. But during that time, I think by August, I got this fever. And I couldn't walk properly. It's like on my jaw and I couldn't walk down the stairs properly. And then, the fever carried on until the day after, as I went to the hospital. They gave me the COVID test. So it's not COVID. And I thought, whoa. And then the hospital were full. So this is still within 4 years of the whole world going on, 4 months of the whole world going on lockdown. And the chemist said it was dengue fever, which can kill you. So it's like malaria, And it's like, well, they said, but we've got no beds there. And it's private medicine out there. And I as an expat, I weren't paying the full medicine like the poorer people that would just get it free because, they're there already and it's their government and country even. So I was kind of like semi kind of insured, if you like. But with that, I couldn't really do much about it. So I thought, okay, well, but you're well enough to go home. We'll just give you this medication. You just stay home with it, because it weren't COVID. And they said, because one of the floors is totally COVID patients, And then the fever wasn't going away properly. I had this really horrible headache. So I went back and then to see the doctor because I had a follow-up with the doctor, outpatients, and he said, well, we took some levels and you should be in hospital. So we're going to find a bed for you in one of our rooms that we have got. So I had to be there for a while they got my, I think it's platelets levels up and things like that. And fast forward, I got back home and got back to what I was doing, and homeschooling my daughter was the huge thing that I was doing, as well as just doing this online. Podcast exploded. It was like really doing well and just getting discovered everywhere, and still is. So I thought, life is good still. I can just go out and do my fitness, and I'm just happy with this bubble that I'm around, really. I did realize that there was kind of some retention in my stomach bladder, and I did have a bladder operation out there about 3 years ago for a stone. So I thought it was that. And then my friend was telling me, go and get your prostate checked out. And, I'm on some of the ex-firefighter, London firefighters groups and the Firefighter charity, which looks after firefighters that get injured and things like that in the UK. And I thought prostate, and I thought bladder, and I thought this retention. And I thought I went back. And I said, I've got some symptoms and I just want it checked out. And this time they thought, well, they told me it could be the C word. And later on, they said it is. Took an MRI scan, said that you got to go back to the UK because that's where it's really going to need to be managed to compared to the Philippines. And
Mhm.
that's it. Got diagnosed officially with prostate cancer 2.5 months ago.
Mhm.
But of course, it's now it's I don't know how long it went for, but it's not early stage because it spread into my bladder, which is why I couldn't pee properly. And I think it's caused some disruption now because now I'm trying to get my wife over, and the idea was to get. I was actually thinking of going back with my daughter when she's 8 years old to enjoy life in the UK anyway, and she's 6 now, but it's now expedited. But we have to sort of work on the visa, which is the main thing now, because also getting my life rebuilt back, repatriating with housing and everything else, really. So this podcast is still surviving. Well, sorry, not yours. I mean mine as well. Well,
No,
yours is.
They both are, really.
Yeah.
But I'm just blown away by the strength, the inner strength you have to deal with. It's not just one thing, right? It's a series of things that are kind of cascading, and not separate. And yet you really do have this spirit of prevailing over whatever it is that comes into your life as a challenge, and you are the epitome of resilience. Really, we don't want to wish this on anybody, any of the things that you've described. But it's life, right? And as human beings, we do experience all these things, not necessarily all at the same time, but to go through that with your head held high and with in the spirit of paying it forward to help other people. I think that's a wonderful message to share out there in the world. So, Dave, it's been amazing having this conversation with you. We have a lot of common ground in terms of.
We do. I've got to learn from stuff that you've actually. You're my mentor with what I have to deal with now, and I'm sure it's really going to test my resilience now. Really, what I'm going to have to deal with in the next. Journey in life, what I have, but at the moment it's really getting my family over and just restarting my life back again, which I was going to do anyway, but it's kind of a bit earlier, and just prolonging my life as long as possible with the cancer, which obviously I have to live with, and there's some good stuff being said about cancer, that the research and everything is amazing compared to 20 years ago. So I'm really positive, expectations of positive really with what I want to go through, and I'm trying to get my health back to athlete, exuberant firefighter that was first joined and really want to, do stuff to really get through all this, that's what the mindset. I've got really good accomplishments that I can look back on to just keep me positive as well,
Well, Dave, you'll be in our thoughts and prayers, you and your family. And where can people find you out there if they want to connect in with you about your podcast or your book or your coaching on the Aura app?
Yeah, sure. Well, at the moment you can go to www.davepamah.com or davepamah.com. I'm going to probably just tidy up the store a bit because I'm going to get a few more kind of like downloadable books and stuff just from health and fitness and personal development life that kind of like fits in with stuff that I've, picked up along the way of my journey in fitness and personal development in general, and offer my resilience coaching a bit more. That's not on the website yet, so that will all be in the store. So that website needs to be upgraded, but you'll certainly see some great podcasts like the one I've done with you, David, and like the one you're doing with me now. So yeah, head over there, and I'm sure you'll pick up some great stuff. It's not resilient, it's not responder only. I've had first responders, but it's not only that. It's still kind of a good variety and diversity of topics and people that come on it.
So, Dave, thank you so much for being with us on Respond to Resilience and sharing your story. And we really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Dave. It's a great pleasure just to give back like this and to a community that I served, as well as to the wider community I served. I think this is really important work, and keep up the good work you're doing. And thanks very much for having me on the show. Great
learning more about you and your journey, and wishing you all the best. Respond to Resilience is on Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern, on Facebook, Responder Wellness Inc. page, YouTube, Respond to Resilience, and on E360 TV Health and Wellness channel. Until the next time, stay safe, be kind to yourself.